It is easier to become rich as the poorest person in a rich neighborhood than it is to become the richest person in a poor neighborhood. That's what we're talking about today. The power of the mastermind and how the people around you, your community, is going to transform your life. At the end of the video, I'm going to tell you guys about my personal experience going to a wealthier part of town and having a conversation over some oysters and a cocktail, and how that conversation taught me everything and embodied everything that I learned in this chapter. Every principle we go over will be tied to the story at the end. So please stay tuned. The first part that we have to go over is human thought as energy. Now, we've already talked about this before, but there's three categories, or almost like a step-by-step process, like cause and effect, that will really make your thought energy flow and keep going like a current, right? We always talk about currency. So the first part of organizing your knowledge is first downloading the knowledge. So all of a sudden, infinite intelligence gives you a hunch and you follow it, right? That comes in the form of an intuition, a gut feeling, just a thought that sticks in your mind just a little longer than normal, something that feels like the right next step. You follow that. Then comes number two. All your accumulated experience. It's going to be every book you've read, every teacher you've talked to, every class you took, every time you traveled. All those accumulated experiences you have are going to tie to what you learned today from infinite intelligence. Then it's going to go to the third part. The third part is the most important. This is what's really going to turn your thought energy into real life, like a creation, right? Which is going to be experiment and research. And again, the story at the end is going to be my experiment and research and how I turned that thought energy into experiment and research and how it literally worked and created exactly what I was looking for. Let's go on to the second part we're going to talk about. The second part of this concept is a mastermind is more than network. And here's the quote that really stuck with me. No two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third invisible, intangible force, which may be linked to a third mind. At first, I was like, what do you mean you can create another mind? That's kind of crazy. It makes sense, right? Because when we think about the creation or life cycle, right, two people have to come together to create life, right? So you and a partner come together, you create a baby. That's literally two minds coming together and creating a third mind. If that's the life cycle, if everything has a life cycle, then it makes sense that your thoughts, if they are energy and if they exist, right? We've been talking about that for chapters now, that if they come together, it creates its own third entity, which starts to take shape and form of its own. Which is why you have to be very careful when you're talking to people about certain things, which is the next part we'll get into. Every conversation is creating a mastermind. Every time you talk about that person you hate that lives in your brain rent-free, that you're giving your 2 cents to, who doesn't care about it, you're creating a third mind that gives them more energy and feeds them, right? Because if thoughts are energy and you're thinking about that person, you're feeding them your energy. What's a perfect example? Whether you love or hate Donald Trump, the more energy and thought energy you give to that man, whether good or bad, because obviously he's very gifted at transmuting energy, good or bad. He can take it and turn it into whatever he wants. Whether you are giving that man energy, good or bad, you are draining yourself of your energy, while simultaneously, especially if you're going and talking trash about him, you're creating this third mind that starts to hate him and grow and create energy and then throws it back at him. So do not, if you hate people or even if you love people, give them more energy than you give yourself and your ideas and your visions and your missions. It's so vital that you are careful about what you speak about. And I'm going to go into that with some quotes from this chapter, which are this. Analyze the record of any man who has accumulated a great fortune, and many of those who have accumulated modest fortunes, and you will find that they're either consciously or unconsciously employed the mastermind principles. Great power can be accumulated through no other principle. Energy is nature's universal set of building blocks, out of which she constructs every material thing in the universe, including man. Just like I said, even having a child is like this. And every form of animal and vegetable life. Through a process which only nature completely understands, she translates energy into matter. Next time you think about giving your greatest enemy energy, do not, whatever you do not give them energy, because you are depleting your life force and therefore handing them bricks. You're doing the labor for them. You're handing them bricks to grow and create a bigger energy and source around themselves. Do not do it. It's not worth it. And if this isn't making enough sense for you because it sounds too woo-woo, let's break it down to something more simple. A group of brains coordinated in a spirit of harmony will provide more thought energy than a single brain, just as a group of electric batteries will provide more energy than a single battery. That's why everybody has their team or their employees, because these people need to work in synergy and harmony together, pumping energy into this idea or this thing. At the beginning of my career, I would sit with people and eat. Teachers Lounge can be, not always, is one of the most toxic places to be because they will talk crap about other teachers, students, administration, and then it becomes a cesspool of negativity, this hive mind around how horrible school is in this place that we're all choosing to be at. So important that when you are at work, you mind your freaking business, okay? Mind your business. Don't enter into the drama, especially if you're going to be the personality hire, honey, be the personality hire. Do not be that person sucking everybody's energy and siphoning off the vibes because you will be fired. If your boss has any wits about them, they know that you are a problem for the environment and that you will slowly cause the demise of the business. So don't be that person. And if you feel yourself becoming that person, take a deep breath and be like, why am I doing this? Is this beneficial to me? Is this what I want? Do I need to leave this place before I get kicked out, right? That really leads us into the third part, which is every conversation you have creates its own hive mind, own mastermind. That's why it's very important. In earlier chapters, they talked about don't be telling your business to everybody. Don't be telling your goals and your visions and everything to everybody because you will create another mind, which could in turn eventually become something you maybe don't want it to be. And then here it says, for it is a miracle when 200 million people can be induced, not forced, to cooperate in a spirit of harmony for a limitless time. If you doubt that this is a miracle, try to induce any two people to cooperate in a spirit of harmony for any length of time. Every man who manages a business knows what a difficult matter it is to get employees to work together in a spirit even remotely resembling harmony. So how on earth did Gandhi get all these people not getting paid to synergize and think on the same wavelength? Like, how big was his aura? Like, that's just crazy. So how did I meet this person that ended up giving me a bunch of information? I sat at a bar on the rich side of town, got some oysters and a glass of wine. And then we kind of start talking. He starts telling me all about this business he has. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. So you're a farmer. That's beautiful. I love gardening. Lots of spiritual messages to be derived from the garden. And he's like, yeah. Then I was like, well, you are a farmer in Napa, right? So do you grow grapes for wine? He's like, yeah, of course. We do lots of wine. We do like really nice bottles. And I was like, well, how's that going right now? I mean, the economy's shifting. And not to mention, I've been a teacher for over a decade. And I realized that the market's really shifting around alcohol. Like, these young people just don't drink like they used to. And he was like, well, actually, that is very true. I've noticed a huge shift and the luxury market of wine is really dropping. So he said, and this reminds me of the QQS strategy from earlier chapters. He's like, I really try to bring that energy into a service, right? But then he goes, but the quality and quantity of what I do has to shift. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. What does that mean? He says, we need to start pumping out grapes faster and creating cheaper bottles of wine because the reality is that no one's buying those high ticket bottles of wine anymore. And people just aren't drinking like they used to, but they do buy the cheaper stuff. So my margins might not be as large as they used to be, but I'm still selling enough quantity to make up for that. And I was like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. And then without realizing it, he taught me exactly and solidified exactly what we talked about in the first part of this video, which is infinite intelligence is going to give you a ping, right? He got the ping. Oh, there's all this recycled material, ping. Then he had his accumulated knowledge. Now, his accumulated knowledge wasn't out of books. This guy wasn't very well educated. He just said, all of a sudden, bing, he thought back to his packaging days where he was just folding boxes all day, right? And then bam, he turned that into experiment and research. He took that stuff and was like, okay, let me try to create boxes and this and that out of it. And then turn that whole current of energy into money. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is telling me everything I'm learning in this book. And what do you know? This guy's Big Bags McGee. He had properties here in Napa, in Hawaii, and he was a gardener, right? This book also talks about the garden of the mind and how you can become more fruitful through planting seeds and through keeping that force of energy and that current moving. And man, I was just sitting there like, dang, I need to be in the wealthy part of these neighborhoods more often. This is going to be incredibly valuable to me. Even if I'm just listening and hearing stories, I will gain knowledge that I can't simply gain on my own. And then the woman on this side of me, we had a completely different conversation, which I'll save for another day. But women are such a wealth of knowledge, and she gave me so much game. So if you haven't, go to the nice side of town, have yourself a drink, have yourself a bite to eat, and have yourself a good conversation. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Take care.